In August 2021, 22-year-old Gabrielle Venora Petito went missing. No one could find her. The last person to see her was her fiance, Brian Christopher Laundrie. But when he returned alone from a trip both of them went together on, his whole persona changed, like something happened on that trip. When questioned about his fiance's whereabouts, he wouldn't say anything, as if he swore an oath to secrecy. After close to 4 weeks of searching for answers and Gabby was finally found, but not the way you or anyone would imagine. Gabrielle Venora Petito grew up in Blue Point, New York, and since birth has always been full of life. She graduated in 2017 from Bayport Blue Point High School in Bayport, New York. It was there that she met Brian Laundrie for the first time, but they were not dating yet. Then fate reunited them again 2 years later, and they started dating. So much so that they got engaged, and Gabby moved in with Brian in Northport, Florida. While she worked as a pharmacy technician in a Publix in Northport, Brian worked in the grocery section. But at the start of the COVID-19 epidemic, they quit their jobs. They probably got tired of the regimented lifestyle of those jobs and wanted something with more freedom, and that's when the idea of cross-country came up. Just touring the whole country and living on your own rules. But they needed money to fund the trip, so Gabby started working 50-hour weeks at Taco Bell as a nutritionist, while Brian found employment at an organic juice bar to save money for this new plan and trip. And once they had enough money, they were good to go. Gabby bought a 2012 Ford Transit Connect van and turned it into a camper for their upcoming cross-country trip. The couple decided to blog, or to be more specific, vlog their travels. They created a YouTube channel and posted their first video, where they wrote in the clip's caption that they both wanted to downsize their lives and travel full-time. And it looked like they made the right decisions. On Instagram, Gabby recorded her life and travels and spoke of her passions as art, yoga, and veggies, quote-unquote. They were gaining followers on their Instagram accounts, and even the one video they posted on YouTube has gained over 7 million views. So, in a way, they were becoming profitable influencers. At this point in their lives, Gabby was 22 and Brian was 23, and they were living their best life. Most people loved the couple. They were #couple goals, and on screen they looked happy. But it turns out that when the record button is turned off, things aren't as rosy as most people thought. While we see a couple that's lucky to have each other on camera, in reality they were always fighting. So much so that it got the police involved. On August 12, 2021, a man called the police to report that he saw a couple fighting outside a Moab, Utah food cooperative known as Moonflower. He told the dispatcher that he saw the man slapping the woman. After that call, another witness called the police and told them that they saw a woman fitting Gabby's description punching Brian in the arm, and that Gabby and Brian were speaking aggressively, quote-unquote. According to the witness, Brian appeared to be trying to take her phone with him and leave Gabby behind at wherever they were at the moment. She got into the driver's seat, slid over into the passenger seat so he could drive, and questioned him, "Why do you have to be so mean?" before they headed out together. At first, the police didn't know who they were talking about, but they still proceeded to find this white van with the plate number. After a while, officers from the Moab City Police Department were able to identify the van driving erratically near the entrance to Arches National Park and conducted a traffic stop. And that's when they finally found Gabby with her boyfriend, Brian. And even the state they found Gabby wasn't a good one. She was crying. Despite what you just watched, the police decided that the incident was more of a mental breakdown than domestic violence, which would have meant arresting someone. Also, neither Gabby nor Brian wanted to press charges. So the police did the next best thing, which was to split the couple up for the night, making plans for Brian to stay at the Moab Bowen Motel and for Gabby to stay in the van. One of the officers noted in his report, "At no point in my investigation did Gabrielle stop crying, breathing heavily, or compose a sentence without needing to wipe away tears, wipe her nose, or rub her knees with her hands." The male tried to create distance by telling Gabby to take a walk to calm down. She did not want to be separated from the male and began slapping him. He grabbed her face and pushed her back as she pressed upon him and the van. It was that bad. Here's the crazy thing and why you shouldn't believe everything on social media. 7 days after this event, which was August 19th, 2021, they posted that video on YouTube, all looking happy. You would think they had no problems. When Gabby made her last Instagram post on August 25th, it was a picture of herself with all smiles in front of a butterfly painting outside of a restaurant in Ogden, Utah. In such, they planned to continue their touring of the country. Gabby even told her mum that they were going from Utah to Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. 2 days later, after the conversation with her mother, there was CCTV footage from a Whole Foods store in Jackson, Wyoming that captured Gabby and Brian. They got to the parking lot at 2:11 p.m., went into the store at 2:14, and left at 2:30 p.m. to get back in their van. After sitting in the van for about 20 minutes, they finally got behind the wheel, and at 2:56 p.m., they were on Highway 89, which leads north to the Bridger-Teton National Forest camping. Sadly, this would be the last time anyone saw Gabby alive. Now, this is where things start getting strange. Usually, Gabby was always in constant communication with her family members. In such, if you've been paying attention, you'd notice that I tend to give you the time, date, and place of an event. That's how good the communication was between Gabby and her folks. Plus, she had geotagging that made it easy to know her location at the time of her pictures. Then, out of the blue, on August 27th, Gabby sent her mother a text that said, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." The message felt strange to Gabby's mother. Stan was Gabby's grandfather, quite alright, but Gabby never called him by his first name. That's like calling your mother by her name. Feels weird, right? Then she got another message from Gabby's line that simply said, "No service in Yosemite." Her mother was now worried, and she expressed uncertainty about who sent these messages. But Gabby was with her fiance, and her fiance was still reachable, so maybe it was nothing that bad. On September 1st, the couple decided to take a short break from touring the country and visit loved ones, Brian's parents to be precise. But instead of the parents seeing the couple, they only saw their son, Brian. Gabby was not with him. When asked about Gabby, he didn't say anything. He just walked in. It's been close to 2 weeks now, and Gabby's mother hasn't heard from her daughter. No calls, no FaceTime, no messages. Even her social media had no recent posts, just nothing. And the crazy thing is, the person she was with just came back and was camping with his parents like nothing happened, without providing details about Gabby's whereabouts. For 10 days since he came back, Brian never said anything about Gabby's whereabouts. By September 11, Gabby's mother was fed up and filed a missing person report. Now, here is where things start to get a bit diabolical. Brian's parents not only kept shut about the whereabouts of Gabby, but they also hired a lawyer immediately after Brian visited them. As a result, they didn't say anything about Gabby's whereabouts and wouldn't talk to anyone about it.
And you don't do your Fifth Amendment until you're trying to hide a crime where you don't want to incriminate yourself or someone else. That's the only reason you invoke the Fifth, unless someone tells me otherwise. But I'm an emotional dad in an emotional situation, so that's how I'm seeing it at this moment. I'm a believer in the Constitution, and I know the Fifth is awesome for people. I get it. Sometimes it works. Right now, if you're innocent, you shouldn't be used. That's the wrong tactic to take.
That was from Gabby's dad, who was trying everything to stay calm and not escalate things to the point of violence. Right now, everyone was asking, where's Gabby? As the story went on, many people became interested in Gabby's disappearance and tried their best to help find her. The couple's travel posts on social media, leaked police body camera footage, 9/11 call recordings, eyewitness reports, Brian's parents' actions, and a large amount of media coverage all brought the case to a lot of people's attention.
I'll tell you, I'm very fortunate. Given this situation, I'm extremely lucky because not only has, the authorities, the FBI, all the agencies that are helping out, all the task force that are helping out, but all the social media, the media attention. I mean, it's really hard to deal with, but it is needed. And I'll tell you, I haven't seen this type of attention on something like this, and I am extremely grateful. I'll never be able to repay the type of, the assistance that we've been given. I'm humbled by it, and it's hard to, to understand, but I get on how lucky I am for that.
At one time, Gabby's name had more than 41 million hits on Google. There are also now more than 1 billion posts on TikTok, with her name also being a hashtag on Twitter. Because of this worldwide coverage, reports started coming out. People started to see and remember things differently. You know how you see something and chuck it up to nothing, and then 3 days later or a week later, it becomes mainstream and you're like, oh, I remember that happening. And now your brain starts to fit in pieces that were missing or you just didn't care about before. For example, a couple who were on vacation in Jackson, Wyoming on August 27th said they saw Gabby and Brian getting into a commotion as they were leaving a restaurant. They said Gabby was crying and Brian was clearly angry. Brian went in and out of the restaurant several times and was really angry at the staff around the hostess stand. A restaurant manager also corroborated the story too. But the most famous report was from this TikToker, Miranda Baker.
Hi, my name is Miranda Baker, and on August 29th, my boyfriend and I picked up Brian at Grand Teton National Park at 5:30 at night at Coulter Bay. I'm hoping this can help someone identify him because I saw him from TikTok, which then made me call the authorities, and my boyfriend and I have been in contact with a bunch of different people to help piece together different parts of this case. But we picked him up at Coulter Bay, like I said, at 5:30. He approached us asking us for a ride because he needed to go to Jackson, which we were going to Jackson that night. So I said, hop in. He hopped in the back of my Jeep. We then, proceeded to make small talk. But before he came in the car, he offered to pay us like $200 to give him a ride, like 10 miles. So that was kind of weird. He then told us he's been camping for multiple days without his fiance. He did say he had a fiance, and that she was working on their social media page back at their van. Then once, in conversation, I brought up, we're going to Jackson. He freaked out. He's like, nope, I need to get out right now. Pull over. So we pulled over at the Jackson Dam, which I don't know if you know Teton Park, but it's not very far from Coulter Bay. And if this does reach people, I can post pictures of exactly where we were. We picked him up and the whole route or whatever, and screenshots of the timestamps. We dropped him off at 6:09 p.m. on August 29th. He kind of hurried out of the car, and then he's like, okay, I'm just gonna go find someone else to hitchhike. And we're like, okay. It was a weird situation. So when we picked him up, he was wearing a backpack, he had a long sleeve pants, hiking boots, and he had scruff, but he didn't look dirty. For someone who was camping for multiple days, he didn't look dirty, he didn't smell dirty, so that part was kind of weird. And I'm just really hoping that they find her, and this helps someone remember seeing him or something like that.
In several TikTok videos, Miranda Baker said that she and her boyfriend picked up Brian that night in Coulter Bay, Wyoming, while he was hitching. He told them he'd been camping near the Snake River outside of Grand Teton National Park. Brian became angry when he learned that Miranda and her boyfriend were going to Jackson Hole instead of Jackson. He told the driver to stop and got out of the car near the Jackson Dam. Miranda later gave all this information and more when she finally knew who they picked up, weeks later. Then Brian was picked up by Norma Jean Jalovec, a seasonal resident of Wyoming, not far from Jackson Lake Dam on August 29th. She took him to the Spread Creek scattered camping area. Jean says Brian told her that he and his fiance had a trip blog, and she was working on the blog in their van at the campground while he had been hiking for a few days along the Snake River bank. A lot of information was coming out as everyone wanted to find this woman. Gabby's family and some of the Laundrie family were also in public as they wanted Gabby to be safe. In an interview with Good Morning America, Cassie Laundrie, Brian's sister, said,
"Me and my family want Gabby to be found safe. She's like a sister, and my children love her, and all I want is for her to come home safe and sound, and this to be just a big misunderstanding."
But the Laundrie family's words and actions were two different things, as they still kept shut about the events. On September 16th, 2021, a letter written to Laundrie's parents was read out loud in front of the news reporters by their lawyer. It was a plea for help in finding their daughter. It goes like this: Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, we are writing this letter to ask you to help find our beautiful daughter.
We believe you know the location of where Brian left Gabby. We beg you to tell us. As a parent, how could you let us go through this pain and not help us?
We understand you're going through a difficult time and your instinct to protect your son is strong. We ask you to put yourselves in our shoes. We haven't been able to sleep or eat, and our lives are falling apart. We believe you know the location where Brian left Gabby. We beg you to tell us. As a parent, how could you let us go through this pain and not help us? As a parent, how could you put Gabby's younger brothers and sisters through this? Gabby lived with you for over a year. She was going to be your daughter-in-law. How can you keep her location hidden? You were both at Jim and Nicole's house. You were both so happy that Brian and Gabby got engaged and were planning to spend their lives together. Please, if you or your family has any decency left, please tell us where Gabby is located. Tell us if we are even looking in the right place. All we want is Gabby to come home. Please help us make that happen. Jim Schmidt, Nicole Schmidt, Joe Petito, Tara Petito. It was during this period that Brian was officially named a person of interest in the case by the authorities. But when they tried to talk to Brian or his parents, they were told to contact their lawyer instead. After several days of both Gabby's family and the police begging and pleading with the Laundrie's family to cooperate in the investigation, on September 17th, the Laundrie's family finally requested the police come to their home. It was there that they revealed a shocking secret. It turns out that Brian was also missing. The Northport Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigations are currently searching for 23-year-old Brian Laundrie of Northport. The attorney for the Laundrie family called FBI investigators Friday night indicating the family would like to talk about the disappearance of their son. The family now claims that they have not seen Brian since Tuesday of this week. Brian is described as white male, 5'8", 160 pounds, brown eyes, short brown hair, trimmed facial hair, last seen wearing a hiking bag with a waist strap. We understand the community's frustration. We are frustrated too. For 6 days, the Northport Police Department and the FBI have been pleading with the family to contact investigators regarding Brian's fiancée, Gabby Petito. Friday is the first time they've spoken with investigators in detail. It is important to note that while Brian is a person of interest in Gabby's disappearance, he is not wanted for a crime. We are not currently working a crime investigation. We are now working a multiple missing persons investigation. The Northport Police Department is actively looking for Gabby, Brian, and any information surrounding this case. Please continue to utilize 1-800-CALL-FBI. That post was put up on the Northport Police Twitter account. The whole country was now in search of Brian. The FBI was also involved. It turns out that on September 13th, Brian took some hiking stuff and told his parents he was going hiking in the nearby Carlton Reserve to just get some air and clear his head, but Since then, no one has seen him. Normally, he's not supposed to go anywhere because he is a suspect in this case, but he did. And most importantly, his parents didn't tell the police that he left the house and was missing until September 17th, 3 days later. So not only are they looking for Gabby, but the best lead and suspect in the case is also missing. Police started a search for Brian at the Carlton Reserve, a nature area with more than 80 miles of hiking trails in Venice, Florida. About 50 police officers from 5 local agencies and the FBI were looking for Brian. Then, out of the blue, while still looking for Brian, a major lead came through for Gabby. A YouTuber by the name of Jen Bethune was driving through the Spread Creek campground on 27th of August 2021, recording from a dash cam. She noticed a white van, but like I said earlier, thought nothing of it. It was only after Gabby was declared missing that she remembered seeing a similar white van parked on the side of the road. Luckily, she had it on tape, so she checked to be certain, and sure enough, the description matched. She contacted the authorities and gave them the video.
Bigger and bigger.
We just some reason instantly knew that it was hers.
When I called the FBI, I was like, I have found Gabby's footage, like patch me across to somebody, like this is huge, because I knew deep down what it was, and I knew how important this footage would be.
The body was a complete match with Gabby. I can't begin to imagine what the family must have been going through at this point. From searching from their child, clinging to hope that she'd be found, to getting the worst news of their child's body being found. It's a nightmare for all parents. And the worst part of this was that she was murdered. After a detailed investigation by forensic pathologists, anthropologists, and local law enforcement, with the assistance from the FBI, Gabby's cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Now Brian was wanted. He had some explaining to do. The police finally issued a warrant for his arrest. His parents' homes were thoroughly searched by federal agents for hours. A search order showed that they wanted to look through phones, computers, and external hard drives in particular to find any clues about where Brian was or how he was involved in the death of his fiancée. The parents were also questioned extensively, but nothing came out of the search, so they moved on to a different area. On September 18th, a large search began in the swampy 25,000-acre desert area for a long period of time because police thought it would make a good place for Brian to hide for months. Then the police were getting reports that people in Alabama, which was 600 miles away from Northport, by the way, had seen Brian more than once. But all these reports were kind of useless. The search for Brian went on all the way through October, and for close to 4 weeks, Brian was still missing. No one, including the parents, knew where he was. The Northport police turned over the case to the FBI, who started looking for Brian back in the swamp almost right away. They decided to retrace their steps and go back to the swamp they had searched earlier to look for Brian, just in case. His father, Chris Laundrie, spent a day with the police and drove with them into the Carlton Reserve to show them where his son liked to hang out. However, there was never any proof of Brian being at the Carlton Reserve. But on October 20th, the police finally caught a big break and found Brian's things in surrounding areas.
Earlier today, investigators found what appears to be human remains,
including a backpack and notebook. That meant he could be close. They thoroughly searched the area, and that's when they found him. To be specific, what was left of him, in Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. Turns out the reason it was hard to find Brian was because he was dead. The area where Brian's remains were found had been searched weeks before, but it had been underwater due to changes in the swampy terrain, so Brian was not found during the initial search. But when it became dry and accessible, that's when they saw his remains. An autopsy was done, and it was determined that Brian died by suicide from a gunshot wound to the head. With this finding, the case was closed. But mind you, we still don't know exactly what happened that caused this series of unfortunate events. Why did Brian kill Gabby? what happened. And for 8 good months, we didn't know until June 2022, when Laundrie's family lawyer shared a notebook that had been found near his remains. In it, Laundrie admits to killing Petito. Laundrie wrote in the notebook, "I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it is what she wanted. But I see now all the mistakes I made. I panicked, I was in shock, but from the moment I decided, took away her pain, I knew I couldn't go on without her." Brian was trying to defend himself for killing Gabby, that he had a good reason for committing such an act. According to him, they were trying to get back to their car before it got too dark to see. They were about to cross a stream when Gabby got injured. As time passed, the pain got worse. Her feet and wrists were hurting. Brian also claimed Gabby had a small bump on her forehead that eventually got larger, as well as other injuries, and that she was begging for an end to her pain, quote unquote. The note ends with his plans for suicide. "I'm ending my life not because of a fear of punishment, but rather because I can't stand to live another day without her." And that was it. And here's the real shocker. When Brian committed this act, he called his parents to let them know what he'd done. Brian's father admits that on August 29th, 2 days after Gabby was believed to have been murdered, Brian called him in a frantic state and said, "Gabby's gone." That was when and why the parents lawyered up. They were trying to protect their son instead of doing the right thing. Of course, they tried to twist the words and claim ignorance. According to them, they said they didn't know Brian meant that Gabby was dead, that they thought she just left him. But their actions after the call didn't tally well with their sob story, because right after that call, they got in contact with the lawyer Stephen Bertolino and had him on retainer instantly, which cost them $25,000. Why would you have a lawyer on a retainer worth $25,000 if you knew it wasn't serious? They contacted a lawyer but never thought to contact Gabby's parents, their soon-to-be in-laws, about their daughter-in-law's whereabouts. They kept numb and pretended they didn't know about it. This revelation obviously pissed off Gabby's parents, and they filed a lawsuit against the Laundrie family. The Petitos sued the Laundries in March 2022, saying they knew their son had killed their daughter before she was reported missing, and they also knew where her body was. The lawsuit also says that Chris and Roberta Laundrie were trying to help Brian leave the country. The Petito family won the lawsuit, and the Laundries were ordered to pay $3 million to the Petito family. But we all know that no amount of money can replace the hurt the parents felt of knowing that the man who was supposed to take care of their daughter was responsible for her death, and the betrayal of seeing his family cover it up. It is really a sad story, and I hope and pray that Gabby Petito does, rest in peace.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
And that's just making a difference. I'd hate to see someone else end up like Gabby. And I using her story to stop that from happening, by all means use it. It's a story that needs to be heard, and it can make a difference in someone's life. If it's just one, maybe it's worth it.